So a common thought pattern is that if you aren't working hard enough to be breaking a big sweat and really exhausting yourself, that any kind of activity below that is pointless. Like regular walking is going to do nothing for you. And hey, I'd be lying if I didn't say that I used to feel the same way many years ago prior to getting educated. It turns out walking is one of the best things you can do for yourself when it not only comes to creating a calorie deficit, but just your overall health. Now, when it comes to how many steps per day to take when it comes to losing body fat, of course it depends, but also you have to understand that you can't just start walking and eat whatever you want in whatever quantities you want and start seeing results. Now, if everything else were to remain the same and you started doing a lot more walking coming from doing nothing, especially if you're morbidly obese, walking is a great place to start. Plus, oftentimes just getting more active will start motivating you more to make other changes in your life, to perhaps start hitting the weights a bit more, doing other forms of cardio, eating a little bit healthier, all these things that contribute, but don't think you can just start walking and seeing great results if you don't do anything else. All that being said, you're still gonna be better off doing more walking than you are doing almost none, and let's be honest, it's really easy to be pretty dang sedentary nowadays between stay-at-home jobs, staying in front of your computer all day, easily getting your groceries and anything you want ordered directly to your door. Even most exercise modalities now are electric, and you don't really even have to pedal bikes and push off on scooters or skateboards. It's not uncommon to see people average less than even 2,000 steps per day. And as a coach, I see a pretty large correlation between people who struggle to lose weight and very low step counts compared to those who get a lot more. There was actually a meta-analysis that was done on all-cause mortality based on the amount of steps you take per day. And this study showed that all-cause mortality was about 12% lower for every extra 1,000 steps taken per day. And comparing the lowest step count of 2,700 steps per day to the highest step count of 16,000 per day, there was a 66% reduction in all-cause mortality for the higher end group. And when you really think about it, that's pretty staggering because it's not that much lower than the difference between all-cause mortality from smokers and non-smokers. So with all that being said, do we just take that study and go, everyone should walk 16,000 steps per day? No, I mean, certainly for the most part, more is generally better, but it really depends a lot on what you're currently doing. Remember, your body's gonna be adapted to your normal activity. Now, if someone was to put a gun to my head and said, you have to pick a number or at least a range of how many steps you should take, I'd probably say somewhere around maybe 8,000 to 10,000 steps is gonna be pretty good for most people, and especially if you have a sedentary job, gonna get you much more active. But in my opinion, you wanna make at least a 2,000 step increase above what you're currently doing. But that's on the very low, just minimum adjustment I would recommend. I would prefer to see more around a 3,000 or 4,000 increase. And that'll also leave you some wiggle room as you hit plateaus to increase steps to help get past those plateaus. As a whole, I find a mile is around 20 minutes or 2,000 steps. So if you go for a mile walk every day, you're probably gonna get around 6,000 steps from that, give or take. Keep in mind too, when I say a certain amount of steps per day, I'm not saying that you have to hit that exact amount every single day. We're talking about an average for the week. So maybe one day you only get 5,000 steps, maybe another day you get 10,000 steps, and then you get 12,000, and then you get 9,000. By the end of the week, you're averaging around a certain amount. And this is where sometimes you may say things like, I averaged 8,000 steps a day, but if you really break down your week, maybe you average 8,000 steps per day, 5 days a week, but then the weekend comes around and now you only average like 2,000 steps those days. Well, now you're not really taking 8,000 steps per day, it's more closer to 6,000 steps per day. Now, am I saying you can't lose weight without getting more steps in? Absolutely not. At the end of the day, it's about creating a calorie deficit, and there's many ways to do this. This is just a helpful way, but there's pros and cons. The con is it's time consuming, and I'm sure you're pretty busy. I mean, we're all busy, and if you don't want to take the time to go out for more walks, that's fine, but then you're gonna have to make it up in other areas like eating less food, perhaps more intense cardio, but those all have trade-offs too. Now you're gonna probably be more hungry. You're not gonna be able to enjoy as much balance and flexibility in your diet. If you're doing more intense exercise, it's harder to recover from, and you get kind of run down. And what can actually happen is, especially if you're not paying attention to your steps, you might start walking around less without even realizing it because you're so tired. And now, even though you're doing more exercise, you're now taking less steps without realizing it and end up kind of just trading calories burned. And this is something I see from clients too. I really like to have them track steps. Not everybody, but I really like to because of this. And what used to happen if they weren't tracking steps is maybe things were going along just fine and all of a sudden we hit a screeching halt, or maybe things weren't going very well and all of a sudden things go great and there were no real changes to the plan, and I'll reach out and go, did something in your life change, like with your normal daily activity? Did you get a new job? Are you much busier at home? Are you up around on your feet more? And they'll go, oh yeah, I was sitting in front of a computer all day and I got a change in job where now I'm doing like construction, or I'm a waitress or whatever, and I'm on my feet all day, and all that extra activity makes a big difference. But one thing you do need to keep in mind here is do not look at the calories burned from your steps or really any activity you take. These are not accurate. It doesn't hurt to look at your calories burned to kind of look at what your normal activities look like to see if you're being more or less active on any given day, but the calories burned from things like watches and heart rate monitors and the machines in the gym, they have been shown to be ridiculously inaccurate, up to the point of even being 85% off. So don't get calories burned from that and think that that's going to be accurate. Most likely it's not. It's about being consistent with your nutrition and your activity levels, monitoring how things are going, and adjusting accordingly. But what will be almost inevitable if you see a lot of fat loss, at some point you're gonna get to the spot where you get down to that last bit of fat, that really stubborn belly fat that just won't go away no matter how hard you try. And if that's where you've gotten and you wanna know how to get past that last bit, then make sure you check out this top video next and I'll walk you through how to get there. Otherwise, I think you'll like this bottom video instead, and I'll see you in that other video.